Hey everybody, welcome back to the Bourbon Note. I'm Ben. Got an expensive one on the bar tonight. Is it going to be worth it? Let's get into it. So, on the bar tonight, I've got, bam, this is Little Book the Infinite, Edition 1. So this one is a new expression in the Little Book line from Jim Beam. Apparently, from what I read, this is going to be eventually some sort of like infinity barrel. They're going to make different releases and blend them all together. So in the process of doing that, they're bottling some of their batches up and releasing them. Edition 1, presumably there will be more editions in the future. But this is a blend of bourbon that was distilled by 3 different generations of the No family from the Jim Beam distilleries, from Booker No, Fred No, and Freddie No. All 3 of them have distillate in this particular blend. Apparently it's a blend of 20-year, 14-year, 7-year, and 8-year bourbons. And comes in at 119.3 proof. Let's get into the nose. The nose is super rich and bold. A little bit of some light peanut shell. I know Jim Beam is kind of known for a bit of a nutty note. Peanut shell, though, a little bit more, like a salted peanut shell. Dark brown sugar. There's definitely a nice bit of oak spice on here, but it's balanced with a really, really nice bit of sweetness. But it feels like the sweetness is darker, like the dark brown sugar and almost like maybe like burnt brown sugar a little bit. But then there's also a caramel note that's a little bit on the bright side. So it's kind of a balance of a few different levels of sweetness that really seem to be working together. A little bit of light vanilla, like vanilla bean. But overall, it's a very dark and rich nose. Let's get into the palate. Cheers. That is excellent. It's a nice bit of like dark, rich, like almost a leathery note, like oak and leather on the up front. The sweetness kind of comes in mid-palate. Those brown sugars and caramels and vanillas, those all work really well together. But just like on the nose, like the brown sugar notes are a little bit on the darker side, but there's kind of a bright caramel that goes along with it. It's just a great balance of a nice kind of, I don't know if leather falls into the earthy category, but like that leather and oak, which I tend to find on older age bourbons, is that kind of darker, deep, rich note that I kind of associate with that sort of leather sort of aroma and flavor. Nice mouthfeel. Yeah, this one's a little bit of a ride from the start to the end because it starts out with those leather and oak notes, sweetness in the mid palate, kind of a nice oak spice on the finish as well, a little bit of black pepper. Let's get into another sip here. So on that second sip, that peppery note came out a little bit more, but just enough to kind of complement everything else. This is one of those interesting ones where it has a multitude of kind of different flavors. It's got the spice, but it's got the sweetness, and it's got the oak and leathery note, but they all blend together and they make a very, very well-balanced bourbon. The proof, I think, is good for this one. I would say this drinks maybe at its proof, ethanol-wise, maybe a little less, but flavor-wise, above its proof. So obviously when you proof down a bourbon, you know, you're proofing down that ethanol bite, but you're also proofing down all the flavors that go with the bourbon. And sometimes you get a good balance where they're both kind of proofed down well, or if you have a cask strength version and they haven't been proofed down at all, sometimes the alcohol bite can win out over the flavors and vice versa. Sometimes they're well balanced. This one I feel like is one of those ones where the flavors really won out. Like the flavor level is above its proof. And so that's always great when that happens. Let's go in for the final sip here. Cheers. So overall, I think this is an excellent, well-balanced bourbon. Now, it does come with a $200 price point. I probably should have mentioned that at the beginning of this, and I forgot. You know, this is one of those ones where, you know, it's fall time. Some of these releases come out in the fall and they're a little bit easier to find. And so it's always good to set a little bit of the bourbon budget aside for fall releases in case you happen upon one. Truth be told, I actually had this before I purchased the bottle. I had to pour it at a restaurant, and I just thought it was excellent. And I don't normally pay $200 for bottles, but you know, there are a couple out there that I'm willing to do that for. I figured why not with this one. I also recently bought the Old Grandad 16 year. If you haven't seen that review, it's up on the channel. But every once in a while you got to treat yourself. And as far as to the level that a bourbon can be worth $200 to begin with, I think that the price point on this one, I was willing to buy it knowing what it tasted like. So I guess that must mean that I think it's worth $200. I like having this one on the shelf. I think it's an excellent bourbon. I think this is a good one to have for like an experienced bourbon drinker, you know, friend that you have over and you want to pour something special. This is a great one for that. Again, like I said though, to the extent that any bourbon can be worth $200, some people would argue that, you know, there is a point of diminishing returns when you start spending X amount of dollars, and it's like, is anything really worth that? I don't know. I'll leave that up to you, whether or not you want to spend $200, but this does drink every bit at the level of a premium bourbon. I think it's fantastic. I will say that I had seen some reviews before watching this, and normally I don't watch reviews if I've got a new bottle, just so it doesn't sway my opinion, but I actually watched those reviews after I had the pour of it at the restaurant, not thinking I was going to get a bottle of it. It seems like people are a little bit divided on this one. Some people say it's excellent, and some people say it kind of is a letdown. To be perfectly honest, I don't get this being a letdown. I think it's fantastic bourbon. Again, the $200 price point, that's just subjective to what you're willing to pay for a really good premium, not easy to find bourbon. So I don't know. Let me know in the comments if you've had this one, because I'm super interested in getting as much feedback on this bottle as possible, just given how divided it seems WhiskyTube is, or at least the few reviews that I've seen. So yeah, let me know if you've had this one and what you think about it. This has been Little Book The Infinite Edition 1 on the Bourbon Note. I'm Ben. Please like, comment, and subscribe if you haven't already, and we'll see you on the next one. Okay, I hope that review didn't seem too rushed. Truth be told, I just filmed a review of this and forgot to put my mics on. So had to review it twice in a row. I did get to drink it twice in a row, which is good, but yeah. Just one of those days.